Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, I Shut Him Up with a Knuckle-Crushing Handshake. Not really revenge for myself but for a couple of employees. I had been recently hired as a supervisor for a cable company and didn't know many people in town. One day, I was asked by a customer service rep to come to the lobby and speak to an irate customer. Not unusual at all in my line of work. When asked to help with a customer escalation, I would always ask for specifics before meeting the customer. She told me the guy was a regular who would come in often to belittle and berate her and the other employees over minor issues. I asked why and if he was having a legitimate service problem. It turned out that he was an egotistical toad related to some semi-important family and did not have a service issue but wanted to harass the office staff about programming content, something they had zero control over. It's not right to prejudge others, but I've met countless customers like him before who felt it was necessary to let everyone know their uncle was on the city council or that they played golf with the police chief. Name droppers have never impressed me. Since I was new in town and had never heard of him or his semi-important family, I asked her to introduce us. I'm 6'7" and 335 pounds with very large hands and blessed with an iron grip since birth. Size doesn't mean that much to me, and I generally play it down, but I will use it if necessary. I entered the lobby, made immediate eye contact, greeted him before he could greet me and cheerfully introduced myself with my right hand extended. His back was to the wall, poor defensive position, as I closed in. I clasped his hand in mine and tightened my grip until I felt his knuckles begin to pop. He leaned forward a little as he went up on his toes. We maintained eye contact, and I kept my warm, friendly smile as I watched his fade. I let go of his hand and asked how I could help. He muttered that he had questions about programming, but they were not worth wasting our time on, and headed for the door. I thanked him for stopping by and invited him to come back and ask for me anytime he had questions or service issues. I did what I did because the guy was a known jerk and I knew that no man would ever call to complain or cry because he couldn't handle a firm handshake. I claimed my territory, and he never harassed the employees again. I don't like intimidation of any kind from anyone but will use it if necessary to stop harassment, especially from a town bully who gets his jollies by verbally abusing the employees. The next one is titled, The DHL Delivery Couldn't Have Had Better Timing. This story starts off with a slightly less humorous fact. A few days ago, I was on the unfortunate end of credit card fraud. The fraudsters decided to take my CC info and purchase $1,000 worth of car parts from Philly and have it sent across the border to the city I currently live in, Vancouver, Canada. Normally, this is where the story ends. Sometimes they get away with it, sometimes they don't, but either way, my card is replaced and I continue on living my life. This, however, is where the fun starts happening. I got a call this morning about a DHL shipment entering the country that required customs to be paid. Knowing I haven't shipped anything with DHL in forever, they are the worst, I quickly come to the realization that it must be the fraudsters shipping their goods here. It can't be. I thought. Who in their right mind would use a stolen credit card to order something to their own house in the city where the owner of the car lives? After a brief chat with DHL about the customs fees I will not be paying, I managed to obtain the address the package was being sent to. I hummed and hawed about it but eventually decided the best thing to do was call the local police department and let them know what was up. I told the officer all about the situation, and that unfortunately, I did not know what car the parts were for and that I hope this info helps them somehow in the future. He tells me that the chances are slim but he will swing by the house, it's literally 15 minutes from my own, just to see if anything weird is going on and follow up with me if he needs to. I thank him and go on with my work day. About an hour later I get a call from the same officer, obviously excited. Hi Avip, it's Officer X. You will never guess what just happened. I was following up on the report and drove by the house. I decided to go knock on the door just to see if anyone was home and ask them a couple of questions. A man opened the door and as we were talking, DHL drove up to deliver the package. Yes, that's right, the exact package we had been discussing. The delivery driver walks up to the door and says, "Hi, is AVP there?" To which the man replies, "Oh yeah, he's just downstairs." You can imagine my surprise. That's pretty funny because I just got off the phone with him and I know for a fact he doesn't live here, I said. The guy, no joke, looks me dead in the face and goes, "Oh whatever, the package is paid for." I chuckled and turned to the DHL driver to tell him should leave because I need to make an arrest. "I'm calling you while I drive back to the precinct, thought it might brighten your day." I still cannot believe that they caught the guy. The next one is titled, "He came back to 3 inches of ice on his car." I went to a boarding school in Pennsylvania for sophomore through senior year of high school. One of the dorm monitor guys was a royal butthole. Any day he was on duty was hell. He would stick you with "on campus only" aka grounded for the littlest thing, and complaining about it got you in sight, have to be visible, can't hide in your room even to do homework, etc. until bedtime. Typical "I'm in charge" bullying BS. One year he got bad news right after we got back from Thanksgiving. A family member on the other side of the country was in bad shape, so he had to go take care of them. We never got the exact details. He lived in a crappy neighborhood and didn't trust his car to be in one piece when he got back, so he asked the school administrators if he could leave his car at the school while he was away for 6 weeks. They let him, the only stipulation being that he had to leave the keys with maintenance so they could move the car if the parking area needed plowing. He parked his car on the grass around the side of our dorm the second week of December and left. He didn't get back until the end of January. Because the dorm was full of teenagers with bad ideas, the spigots didn't have regular handles on them. Instead, they used a strange square key that was kept in the office and was only used with permission from the dorm monitors. However, a pair of flat-ended pliers worked well to turn the water on. We hid a hose in the bedroom closest to the car, which was also right next to a spigot. The kid who was supposed to be in that room slept elsewhere so he wouldn't get woken by someone coming in every 20 to 30 minutes, unrolling the hose, hooking it up, turning on the water, giving the car a good misting, and rolling up the hose again. Every day, from the minute we got back from classes to the minute we had to leave the next morning, that car got misted. We even got help from a couple of kids in our classes who lived close enough to bike over during Christmas vacation. One even showed up with a lawn chair and a book so he could just stay there and missed it again as soon as the last layer had frozen over. No staff was in any of the school buildings during vacations, so he didn't get caught. In the middle of the night 2 days after we got back from Christmas vacation, I was one of the 2 people on duty with the hose when the monitor for that night comes outside for a cigarette. We didn't know he smoked, so we thought he was in the office, which was on the other end of the building. He sees me with the pliers in hand and asks, "Did you forget something?" and holds out the spigot key. That's when we realized just how much Butthole was disliked. That monitor actually offered to help ice Butthole's car during the day while we were in classes. By the time Butthole got back, the car was encased in a block of ice. I had to be at least 3 inches thick. When he complained to the administrators, they told him that because he hadn't dropped off the keys, everyone had assumed he had changed his mind about leaving the car there. When he went to try to get his car out of the ice, he couldn't just attack it with a hammer. Doing so would break every window and destroy the paint job. The only way to get rid of the ice was the same way it went on, slowly. He tried using a small blowtorch, but that didn't work because he got too impatient and tried to put the torch right against the ice, which kept putting it out. He got the smart idea of hooking a hose to the dorm's hot water heater. It was stalled at first because all the hoses on campus, miraculously, disappeared. Who needs a hose in Pennsylvania in the middle of January? Then he was told he could only do it while we were in class because we needed the hot water for showers in the morning and evening, plus the dishwasher. That didn't work too well because he had a regular job. He had to be at Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Weekends were out because we had to do our laundry. The line, "The tank can barely keep up," was our favorite. He ended up running back and forth with a couple of tea kettles, melting channels so he could chisel out the ice between them. We kept turning the burner off when he left the kitchen. He stopped working for the school at the end of June. Answering some questions, why was this so easy for us to do and hard for him to undo? He put the car on the north side of the building. Almost zero sun compounded by bitter cold. We couldn't have asked for a better setup. How long did it take him to release his car? He would pour warm water so that it would melt a channel, pour some more to melt another, then chisel out the stuff in between with a screwdriver. Maintenance wouldn't lend him a chisel and he was too cheap to buy one just for this. Depending on where he was working, it would come off in big flakes, about the size of a playing card but no more than 1/3 the thickness of a deck. He could only work on it when he wasn't on shift, which was 10 to 15 minutes in the morning after we went to class, but before he went to his other job, and another half hour or so at night after we were supposed to be in bed but before he had to go home to get some sleep. So around Valentine's Day he finally got it to the point that he could get it towed to a local car wash that could keep it indoors long enough for all the ice to melt. We had made damn sure to freeze it to the ground. He had no friends who would do it for him, big surprise, and he didn't trust us any farther than he could throw us. When did he quit? When the school semester was over in June. He had a contract with the school, he couldn't quit early without a good reason, and they didn't really want to fire him. If he had left, they would have had to get other dorm monitors to cover his shifts, which means paying overtime hours, or get someone new, finding someone, full background check, certain minimum training requirements, etc. It would be expensive no matter what. Why no salt, heaters, etc.? Cheap bastard. Nuff said. Did we get in any trouble? Nope. All, and I mean all the staff vouched for us. One gave is the spigot key. The next one is titled, I wonder how he managed to get back into his car that day? When I was in high school, my first car was a cheap little Geo that I'd bought with money I'd saved working my butt off at the neighborhood pizza joint. Obviously, it was nothing special, but it was mine and I was proud of it. I lived in a very affluent suburb in the Midwest at the time though, and a majority of my peers drove much nicer cars, either daddy's BMW or a BMW daddy bought for them. I was a junior at the time, and there were a handful of bullies, seniors, who decided that because I drove a dated, inexpensive car, I deserved to be subjected to constant ridicule and harassment. I was constantly being called poor and laughed at for driving such a cheap piece of crap. In reality, my family was actually decently well off. My parents could have bought me a brand new Mercedes if they'd wanted, but they came from nothing and wanted me to earn my first car. Let's call the leader of this bullying group Tad. Tad was utterly obnoxious to almost everyone around him, but usually got away with it because he was A, attractive, B, a straighter student, and C, a talented player on every sports team our high school offered. The whole conflict started one day after school. I was in my little Geo, in the line of cars waiting to leave the parking lot. Tad was in front of me, in his Audi A4. When we were nearing the parking lot exit, Tad stopped to lean out the window and chat to some of his friends. I had to work at the pizzeria that day and was in a hurry, so being impatient, I sped around him. Tad must have interpreted my passing him as some sort of hostile affront to his ego, and sped up behind me. After finally turning onto the main road, he stayed right on my bumper and followed me to work. When I got out of my car, he leaned out the window and called me some names. I ignored him and went into work. When I got out of work 4 hours later, I found both of my mirrors broken. I didn't have proof, but I knew it was Tad. Luckily, my parents felt bad for me and paid for me to have them fixed that week. Next week, however, came the straw that broke the camel's back. It was a Friday and I'd stayed late after school working on a history paper in the school library. I happened to get out right after the lacrosse team had finished up practice. When I came out to the parking lot, I saw Tad standing next to my car. What was he doing? Taking a pee on the driver's side door. Filled with rage, I ran after him, but he managed to get to his car and peel out of the parking lot. At home, feeling defeated as I washed his pee off my car, I decided revenge was in order. I didn't know how, yet, but I knew an opportunity would come. And it did. 2 weeks later, word had spread around the school that this senior named Doug was having a big party the coming weekend. Doug was incredibly popular, and I knew Tad would be there. I also happened to know Tad would be driving his Audi there. And I knew where Doug lived, and that most of the people, Tad included, would be staying the night. I enrolled the help of my 2 closest friends, Ben and Josh, who both hated Tad just as much as I did, though for different reasons, and they were more than eager to lend their help when I told them my scheme. The night of the party, we waited until 4 a.m. when we knew the party would be dead and everyone would be sleeping. We showed up wearing all dark clothes and plastic gloves. We found Tad's car, and much to our amazement and glee, he'd left it unlocked. We opened the doors and quietly went to work, trying to keep from laughing too loudly. First, I peed into the air vents. I got out, and Josh peed all over the leather driver's seat. Then, it was Ben's turn. Now, let me tell you, Ben is a disgusting human being. He's a loud, funny guy, all smiles and laughter, but he's also just gross. Constantly belching and farting. And it always smells so rancid when he does. He's the type of dude who takes pride in that. Ben pulls down his pants, and whispers, "I wonder if he'll be able to tell I had Chinese food," squats next to the car, and proceeds to take a poop into his gloved hand. The smell is immediately overwhelming and horrifyingly gruesome. It's so potent you can taste it. Josh and I gag right away, frantically pulling our shirts over our noses and retreating from Ben's vicinity. Josh can't take it, runs over to a tree, and pukes his guts out. Ben laughs and says, "Oh my god, that is sick, sorry." While we're watching from a distance in both horror and amusement, Ben takes his warm gift and just starts smearing it everywhere. All over the door handles, the steering wheel, the air vents, the radio knobs. He eventually starts gagging and coughing and retreats himself, but not before wiping himself with the lacrosse jersey Tad had left in the back seat. We couldn't stop laughing on the walk back to Josh's house. The following Monday there were a lot of whispers going around the school. Here's what I eventually learned happened. The morning after the party, Tad discovered the nightmare in his Audi, in front of everyone else who was leaving. He went into a rage, but apparently, almost everyone thought it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. When Tad's parents discovered what happened to the car they'd purchased for their son, they also discovered Tad had been to a party and had been drinking. I guess his parents were not cool with it. They took away his car for the rest of the year and Tad was told he had to ride the bus for the remainder of the year. His parents eventually gave him the car back several months later, but no one wanted to ride in the sh*T-Mobile because of what happened, and because he never got the smell completely out. Tad's bullying surprisingly died down a bit after that. He didn't mess with my car again. The last one is titled, "Thieves Think They Are Stealthy, Stole a Little More Than They Bargained For." Tales from a Laundromat. Let up story here, I'll be brief. I recently moved and needed a job, so I took an easy and quick one at a laundromat. It was really chill most of the time, but during Sundays it would get exceptionally busy. Most customers were honest, simple people just wanting to get their clothes done. I mainly worked the counter and occasionally we would have people drop off clothes for a wash and fold service, and those are normally timed orders so it could get busy, especially if you were the only one working. There was one trouble lady who had 3 unruly kids. She would often just drop them off at the laundromat and use it as free daycare more or less. Management wouldn't do anything about it. Normally I wouldn't mind, except these kids had sticky fingers and would steal things mostly for the sake of stealing. Normally it was random stuff like paper chips or tacks or trinkets. One day they decided to try and take some merchandise, fidget spinners, toys, etc. Management decided to put behind an unlocked display case. Not my choice, it's hard enough to keep an eye on everything. Long story short, it was busy and I couldn't watch everything, and they stole like $30 of stuff. I caught them later, and when I brought it up to the mother she denied it and got very defensive. She complained to my higher up and I got reprimanded for offending a regular customer. Well, the story doesn't end there. I learned a little later she would instruct the kids to go steal soap from people to wash her clothes. I tried to be sympathetic and think maybe she was just in a tough situation, but the way she carried herself has this aura of arrogance around her. She started stealing soap after I caught her kids. So I started getting a small bottle of Gain and putting it on a work cart, slightly hidden but still visible. I kept it about 1/2 to 1/3 of the way full. I would watch her kids and their patterns. And without a doubt one kid would go hit a game machine we had there. Old arcade type. The woman herself would cause problems over something petty or small, usually not enough suds in her machine, or dust, or something sticky on a table somewhere. While she was talking, the smallest kid would run down an aisle and screech. So you would naturally turn that way. The middle kid would act like he was going to the bathroom. It passes by the work cart, and when the little kid screamed he would dart over, grab the soap and put it in his mom's purse. Then if she was complaining about the suds, she would casually walk over and grab her purse, grab the stolen soap out and complain that she had to waste more of her hard-earned soap because the machine was bad. Then when it started sudsing up she would have the biggest grin on her face. Well, this is where the revenge comes in. I knew from previous experience with her family that they do laundry every Sunday, but they skip the 3rd Sunday in a cycle and double up on the 4th. So regular, none double. I let them steal the decoy Gain on the 2 regular shifts. Financed by my money, not the stores. The 4th Sunday I prepared a special bottle of Gain. I took a little water and cornstarch and mixed it with concentrated bleach, to thicken it up a bit so it was more like Gain. I wanted to dye it to match color, but no bleach. The first 2 batches didn't go well, but the 3rd one was slightly goopy, not quite the consistency of Gain, but thick enough to kinda not feel so liquid. I put some spray to sorta mask the scent a little, as bleach was strong. Sure enough, they came in that Sunday. The bottle was planted. Her kids did the usual routine, and they grabbed the bottle of goopy bleach. She went about her normal routine, complaining about the suds in the washer again. Then she grabbed the bleach and emptied it in her double load of colored clothes. I said, "Oh, Cleargain, that's odd." Her responded, "It's a special type, one brought it from home." Defensively, of course. I said, "That's interesting," with a sly grin on my face, "at least I hope that's how it looked." She tossed the empty bottle on top of the washer without a care in the world. 30 minutes later, all the clothes are absolutely ruined. I mean, bleach stains on most everything, colors blending. It was a mess. She is of course up in arms, blaming the machine. I grab the bottle, smell it and go, I think that Special Gain must have had bleach in it. It hits her. She expressly said she brought it from home. She either admits to stealing or admits to bleaching her own clothes. She naturally accuses me, but as it was fairly busy that day, a few customers remembered her tirade and expressly saying she brought it from home. The higher up denied to pay for damages to the clothes. I did feel bad. It must have been $500 or so of ruined clothes. Thanks for listening.